This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by RexMD. Guys, you sometimes lack confidence in the bedroom. We've all had those nights where we get too nervous, or maybe you had too much to drink. There's nothing worse than not being able to perform when the moment arises. Hey, it's happened to all of us. Have no fear, RexMD is here, spreading cheer even when you've had a few too many beers.
RexMD is FDA approved and the most trusted leader in men's telehealth. They have sponsored this episode to help you always be prepared. RexMD has made it simple, easy, and cost-effective to help all the men out there last longer and feel more confident in the bedroom. RexMD makes getting generic and branded Viagra or Cialis easy. Everything's online, even the prescription, and they deliver it discreetly to your door. There's no waiting rooms, no embarrassing trips to the doctor, and no insurance or co-pays.
Take advantage of their best deal they've ever offered and save up to 90% off and only pay $2 per dosage with our exclusive link. Go to rexmd.com/CU podcast for this limited time deal.
RexMD has made the whole process super simple. There's no need to jump through a bunch of hoops to set up an embarrassing doctor's appointment to get your medication. It's just a few clicks of a button. You can talk to a medical professional, create a personalized plan, and get the product discreetly shipped straight to your door within 2 days. RexMD doesn't just have ED medication. RexMD's other medications help sexual health, hair growth, pain relief, and sleep. Did you know Viagra can cost around $90 a pill? But RexMD has generic Viagra that's just as effective for as low as $2 a pill. Unlike other brands, RexMD is FDA approved, clinically tested, and a US licensed pharmacy. You'll be getting FDA approved ED treatments at 90% cheaper than other doctors. It's fast, simple, and cheap. You can access your US licensed RexMD physician anytime you need afterwards. RexMD has already helped over 300,000 guys gain confidence quickly and conveniently, and they're here to help you.
Act now to take advantage of their best deal yet by heading to rexmd.com/CU podcast. Our exclusive deal will save you up to 90% off, where you only pay $2 per dosage. Starter packs of generic Viagra or Cialis are now available for our listeners to get started. That's rexmd.com/CU podcast for up to 90% off. Give the gift of pleasure this year with RexMD. We got voicemails. Go to anchor.fm/CU podcast. You go, you leave a voicemail. You keep it short and sweet, and I'll love you forever, because that's what I like here. And we go to the first one here.
This is John from South Carolina. Ian, on the first episode of the podcast, you mentioned Super Princess Peach was one of your favorite games.
You did.
The one on the DS. I really like it, but I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. Is it still one of your favorites? Question for both of you. What are some of your favorite 3DS games? Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I don't know if I would still call it that. I really, really, really enjoy it. And I think at the time I had just finished another replay of it, so I was high on it. I love the look of the game. I love the sprite work. I obviously like the fact that Princess Peach was the main character. And it's really good. And I'd recommend it to anyone. I know a lot of people think it's maybe too easy, but I think it's a really fun, relaxing game to play through. And for 3DS, I think no series made the 3DS look better than the Etrian Odyssey series, because everything worked so well together, with that lower screen being the grid paper for the map and the top screen being the game.
Hey, Pat. Hey, Ian. This is Max calling from Edison, New Jersey. If you're listening to this, it's now the new year, so Happy New Year.
Woo!
Hope you guys enjoyed your holiday season, and I'm looking forward to the podcast this year. Thanks, guys.
Well, Max,
Thank you.
You got a couple more left for the regular ones, but thanks. I think you're allowed to say Happy New Year for all through January. That's my rule.
Okay.
Because I said it to someone like last week. I was like, am I allowed to say it? I'm like, yeah, why not?
Hey guys, it's Mike from Jersey.
Jersey, Mike!
Has there ever been a better peripheral name than Power Base Converter?
No,
I
it's
remember
great.
in school sitting down at the Gearheads table and saying, "Oh, how was your guys' weekend?" I had to change the Power Base Converter in my Mega Drive. They still stuffed me in a locker. Talk to you later.
I think it's a great name, and I've actually said as such, at Luna when we get them in. I'm always like, Power Base Converter is such a fucking cool name.
It's a great name, but for marketing, it's terrible because you don't know what it does. That's the problem. If they called it
But it sounds highly technological.
Honestly, I remember that, because remember I told you I had a Master System too, but it would have made more sense to get the Genesis and then try to get that. Whatever. It's not compatible, 2 games on the Master System. Next, one of the card games is not compatible.
Hey, fellas, this is Rod from North Carolina again.
Hey, Rod.
One of my hobbies aside from video games is working with leather, and I would be super interested in hearing how 2 different leather companies got involved in computers and video games. It seems weird that it happened with two different leather companies, Connecticut Leather Company, Coleco, and Tandy, which is more, in the computer realm.
I was forgetting Tandy.
Yeah.
It just seems weird that it happened twice. And I'm just wondering how it came to be that the company that I buy stamps from is also a company that used to make computers. So anything you got in that realm, please enlighten me.
I have no idea how that happened.
Well, these are old companies that started out in the early 1900s, and they diversify, they invest in other things, and they probably thought, oh, this is the new hotness. So, like Coleco started with all the the Pong clones, what they started with, and they had the little handheld games. So they got into electronics. So it's like, it makes sense. It's the new hotness. Let's put some money in. I'm sure they try to put their money into other stuff that didn't work out. Like when their companies are that old, you just try to do different things.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, at the point in time that Tandy and Coleco got into it, it was huge.
When did Tandy get into that stuff? Let me see.
Like it was brand new.
Tandy Leather's still making stuff.
Yeah.
They're still making their leathers. I don't think Coleco's making leather stuff, but Tandy looks like they still are.
Right. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it was brand new. It was a huge big thing. It's not like now where, you're not going to see a leather company get into video games now. It doesn't make any sense. But back then when it's brand new and it's taking off, any company could look at it and be like, well, maybe we should throw some money in this.
On the Twitch streams I do, twitch.tv/ContraCode, that we came across this company that I looked up where this is what comes from like the 60s and 50s, and they might still be around. They made everything. They did sports goods. They did like washing machines. They did like all this stuff that had nothing to do with it. They just put their money into all this stuff, and they were known for this. Like there's companies that used to do that back before everything got super specialized. Next, we did the Boxing one last week.
Hey guys, this is Alan from California.
Hey Alan.
I just had a question about collecting on a budget. I collected a couple things, and the problem I keep encountering is not exactly knowing when to cut off. I always kind of have a certain amount I want to spend, then deals keep coming up, and it gets hard to limit myself.
Buy more.
So what are some suggestions or maybe even guidelines as to when is a good time to get something? Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to do the reverse. I'm going to go into financial pat mode. The rule of thumb I've seen is that you should have at least something like 3 to 6 months of extra funds set aside in case something happens of your monthly expenses.
Right.
So if it costs you $5,000 a month to live, food, mortgage, whatever, insurance, everything, you should have 15 to 30,000. I like to go a little more conservative because how I am with that. I would say between 6 months and a year, you should have backed up. If you're getting to the point where you think, hey, I don't know if I can spend this money, you probably shouldn't. The games will be around later.
Right.
Get out of debt first, pay off your credit card debts. That's shit kills you. Remember, whatever deals you might get, you save 10, 15 bucks on a game, put that towards your credit card bills because you're paying 15% interest on that. Like, that's how you got to think of this shit. Get rid of your debt first, save up a little bit, and then you have I'm not saying don't buy anything at all, but don't worry about, hey, I got to buy this now. Like, don't get into that trap. I used to. When I went to the swap meet, I was not doing great. I didn't have a ton of money saved up. I was going to swap meets. I was spending money left and right. It was a bad idea, but it was compulsive kind of at the time.
Yeah, it's tough. I honestly don't know what to say. I went through it too, and as I've gotten older, my fear of my FOMO has basically dissolved.
Yes, it's
I don't worry about missing out on shit anymore, and I wish I could tell you a way to. And it's made collecting a lot more fun for me because I do it at my own pace. I don't worry about when I see shit, and I don't think there's any way to speed that up. But I think it comes when you've matured in a hobby for a long time. I think.
Sure.
Hi, Pat. This is just a request to ask. Please, could you cover Red Letter Media's recent video on VHS grading? I think you and your audience will enjoy it.
We did, and it was fun.
Hey, Pat and Ian. This is AJ from Madison, Wisconsin. Hard to believe that the weekly CU podcast is coming to an end. I can hardly imagine what it's going to be like not hearing your beautiful voices talk about retro gaming. Makes me feel sad, like when they pulled Saturday morning cartoons off of TV, or the Bozo Show was canceled off of WGN.
Bozo Show.
Before I start crying, that brings me to my question. Will you guys go back to what kicked off the CU podcast and do another NES marathon sometime soon? I sure hope so. Best of luck in the future, guys.
Well, that did not kick off the podcast. That was just a random idea. The podcast started in 2013. The first marathon was 2010, so they were not connected.
I suggested Pat do a podcast because he was doing these weekly streams for like 3 hours where he was just showing stuff off, and I said, why don't we bring that together and make it a little more tight?
I was chewing your ear off at the store. That was
that too. But I mean, I remember the thing was you had said that you were doing these 3-hour streams. And I was
They were
like,
pointless.
Just
Good old
give some structure.
Good old Ustream. Shout out to Ustream. Used to push those first 5 or 6 marathons. They used to really promote it. Ustream, you could have been a contender. You should have put the money in it for the gaming stuff. You were way ahead of Justin TV at that point.
Hey, Pat and Ian. This is Sam Miller from Margarettsville, North Carolina, and I have a pinball question for Ian.
Ahoy.
So recently, our little barcade got what is essentially an emulator of pinball tables, and it's kind of cool because I got to play tables I hadn't played in over 20 years, but I'm also kind of weirded out by it because it's pinball on a TV screen. It's not really the physical table, and I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts about emulating a pinball table? Thanks, guys. Love the podcast.
Okay, my thoughts on it. One, I'm not going to trash it. The more and more you get into pinball, the less and less likely that is to do it for you. That's pretty much all I can say. I have no problem with video pin tables, emulated tables. I had every single table for Pinball Arcade. I've played a lot of the Zen pinball stuff. Fake pinball tables, I think it's fun to play them on video, but when I'm playing a real pinball table these days, like a recreation of a real pinball table, all it makes me want to do is get out there and play the real table. And the reason is it's not necessarily the ball physics. We've gotten to the point where balls feel, weight. I know, right? Here we go. Feel weighty enough.
And Rich can comment on that.
Yeah, I'm sure he will because he's a fucking genius. But they've got the weight and everything, right? The problem is that pinball, when you're not used to it, it's flippers, right? It's aiming shots, learning the rules. Virtual pinball is also a great way to learn the rules for cheap to like a certain machine. But what was I going to say? Oh, it's a very physical game when you get into it. There's nudging and bumping and bouncing, and you don't realize, I think, until you start playing it a lot, how much a good pinball player dances with the machine.
Sure.
And you can't recreate that in virtual pinball. So you're only getting...
You can nudge, that's about it, right? A little nudge.
Yeah, well, you've got it, but it's not the same as feeling the weight and knowing the machine. And that's when you get to the point in pinball where you're really into it, and virtual's just not really going to cut it for you anymore. But if I can find a virtual version of a machine I haven't played, and I know I'm going to be able to play it soon, I'll definitely fire it up and learn the rules, and it's fun. It doesn't cut the mustard.
I actually saw it this last swap meet I went to. That's what I recorded for the next Flea Market Madness. They had the Act Games one, not Act Games. The who put out
Act Games put out one.
They did. They had it there at the. I think they wanted like $350 for. I don't know what they cost, like $500. I was going to buy one.
My buddy got one and he likes it after he hacked it and loaded it up with stuff. But it's just, like I said, it's not for me. It's perfectly fine for everyone, for a lot of people.
Next.
Hey, Pat and Ian, this is Kenyon from northern Saskatchewan, Canada. I was just wondering about how you feel about trying to convince other parents that video games are not just for entertainment, but actually educational devices. I mean, The Legend of Zelda has done so much for my problem-solving skills growing up. I mean, it's just like try to be the Ice Temple and Link to the Past, and then not tell me that really helped your problem-solving skills. But anyways, thank you guys, and I hope you guys have a good day. See ya.
There are definitely good things to be learned from video games, and problem-solving skills is one. I think, though, I think leaning too much on the educational aspect is bad because it doesn't really manifest itself in obvious ways. What am I trying to say? I think the thing we need to convince other parents of is quite frankly, it's just that video games can be healthy. In especially the modern age of modern video games, online and socializing. But I don't know that we need to I'm just not sure that there's enough there to say that there's some sort of educational benefit.
Yeah.
I know Pokemon has helped kids learn how to read. There's that. I mean, there are games. I don't want to take away from it. There is problem solving you're learning, but I don't think there's enough to really make that case that video games are educational in the way you want them to be.
Sure. Do a couple more.
Hey guys, it's Daryl from Buffalo
Hey,
again.
Daryl.
I've noticed in the last couple of years that a lot of retro game stores have been closing. And I've noticed a lot of hybrid stores popping up that sell retro video game, board games, and card games. Do you think we're coming to an end of the pure retro game stores in a lot of markets? All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.
No, I don't know that they are. I think when you start seeing like too much other stuff trickle into a game store, if that's not how they started,
sure,
that can be a sign of a problem because the video games aren't making them the money, so they're trying to find new stuff.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it's the case all the time. And there are some stores that start off selling all that stuff. I do think there is still a place for a well-run retro video game store because retro is not Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Retro is a cycling thing. So there's always going to be retro games that people are going to want to play 1 or 2 generations behind that GameStop's not going to carry. I think it's probably easier if you go for like I think some people think it's going to be easier if you go for a big umbrella approach. But I've always found with shops that the more specialized they are, I think the more likely they are to stay in business.
Sure. Yeah, it's always the danger of, what brought you there. Plus, like board games and video games are entirely different. Like
I like both, but I mean, it's just because they're games that they don't make sense together.
The crossover is not the same probably at all in terms of the interest.
No, I know lots of people who play board games that don't touch video games and vice versa.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. Like I can understand like you want to get like the little knickknacks, the collectibles, the Funko Pops, little toys. I'm like, okay, board games is like, aren't there separate games that just sell board games and stuff like that?
Yeah, there are plenty.
So that's what I mean, like that.
And here's the thing: I've never seen a board game store suddenly start introducing video games, but I have seen plenty of video game stores start introducing board games.
Yeah, you walk into a board game store. Hey, look at all these Sega CD games all of a sudden. It's like doesn't make any. Like, what the fuck is this?
All right, we got one more.
We got a good one.
All right.
Hey, Pat and Ian. Happy New Year, guys. Hopefully you guys are doing well and had a good holiday season. So I wanted to ask you guys if you could chime in on the whole DK Oldies situation. I find it really interesting because a lot of content creators are starting to make videos about how much of a scam they are because they do have very overpriced items and consoles. So I'm curious what your take on this is because places like Digital Press are really good and have really affordable prices, but DK Oldies is crazy. So I want to know what your opinion is of them, and if you've ordered anything. Keep up the good work, guys, and Happy New Year.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to, say I don't know about the people who run DK Oldies, and this is not meant to be an insult, but they have been an online store forever.
They're one of the OGs.
And fucking ever. And people have always been like, yeah, they're a little overpriced, et cetera, et cetera. What happened was it was a slow news week and someone made a video about being unhappy with the price they paid for their games. And then what happens is if it gets clicks, and especially if it's dramatic, like we've talked about, every other YouTuber who does those kinds of videos is going to see it and they immediately have to do one.
So there was always the big three. There was JJ Games, DK Oldies, and why is the third Lukey Games. I used to purchase from Lukey Games every once in a while because they had a good bundle shipping deal. This like 15 years ago, whatever, late 2000s, early 2010s. I'd be like, oh, when I was still looking for some NES games, some weird and common stuff. I'd be like, oh, okay, they got this game. I'll do this. I don't remember ever buying from DK Oldies. Maybe I did, but it was always to me a joke because the big boys have bigger overhead. They're the ones that allegedly we talk about run the bots. They do these purchases. How do you think they get all this shit?
Right.
They purchase a ton. They have multiple employees. So I'm not shocked if they charge more. Obviously, you have to shop around. I've talked to people that sold on Amazon. They said, hey, I list my console. I'll sell an NES on Amazon for $200 during the holidays because people don't know any better. They go on Amazon, they'll purchase a Super Nintendo. I talked to people that sell the swap, and they would say it all the time. I said, you get like $200 for an NES? So yeah, you put a zapper and a couple of games, and it's like, holy shit, it should be less than half of that, but okay.
Yep.
So the point is that if you want to call out DK Oldies for like sending you something that was supposed to be refurbished and it wasn't, or something dirty, I get that, but you can't call them out if they're overpriced because we've known they've been overpriced for fucking ever.
You can, but my point is the reason why people are making videos about it now is because it got in the news somehow, and now it's a timely click generator.
Yeah.
I'm not defending DK Oldies. My point is DK Oldies has always been extremely expensive.
Yes,
this is not new.
That's my point. Them overpricing is not a scam because they're not tricking you. The price is there.
Right.
Like you can search for a game.
People will use the word scam way too loosely.
You search for a game, you'll see DK Oldies, and then you'll see everyone else that has the same game. So I mean, they're not tricking you to buying something worth more. But if something is broken or something should be refurbished and it's not, then you got a problem. That's something that should not be done. And looks like they post stuff. They have a YouTube channel. I don't know these people. These people don't come to conventions. Their operation is so centralized. They just, like I said, they bulk buy shit, and that led to a lot of raising of these prices way back because it used to be that you can at least get a lot deal. It used to be that, oh, wow, I can buy 40 NES games, Ian, and I may only need 20, but at least, it's a good deal still.
Yeah.
And you can part out the rest of them. That dried up at some point. I forget when that was, but even that became like the bots knew to add up all the prices on it, and it wasn't even humans anymore bidding. It was just bots basically doing that stuff. So the point is this. If DK Oldies has a bad reputation, don't buy from them. It's capitalism, as Ian says. Like, that's all. Don't buy from them. But yes, the ecosystem gets going. But DK Oldies has been around forever. And so I speak to JJ from JJ Games, nice guy who runs Price Charting. I've spoken to him before. And yeah, Lukey Games. Is Lukey Games still around? Lukey Games was the one I used to buy from more. Lukey Games. They got a website, so they're still around at least, Lukey Games. Those are the big three. Yeah. Those are the ones that would probably literally have like 30 boxes show up a day from buying lots on eBay. Then they separate out, they clean them, they price them out, and they relist them. That's why they can say, oh, we have 75 copies of Bases Loaded for sale. How do you think they get that many that quickly?
Right.
They don't have a physical location, unless you're Luna 2 locations. So